MagMongoSlade. Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. Today, we're going to talk about Smackdown from May 31st, 2023. But first, we get into those good old news and notes. Bianca Belair, once again, goes to Instagram to tell people to stop following her because weirdos continue to stalk her in the airport. What is going? This is like the second or third time, isn't it? Where she had to go public and say, please stop stalking me. Don't follow me asking for autographs. Don't follow me to my car. What is wrong with these people? I don't understand why we keep having to go through this. I know being a celebrity, people get very excited to see you. I know that wrestlers all the time have to deal with people waiting for them at the airport because people are legitimately stalking them, like trying to figure out when their flight lands and how they're going to be there with all of their belongings, their pictures and posters or whatever. It's one thing to bump into somebody like, oh my God, I can't believe you're here. It's another thing for you to be like waiting and then for you to follow them. That's creepy as hell. Like, Montez Ford needs to start carrying a pistol, bro. Like, he needs to carry a pistol to get these people away from her. But it's like third or fourth time, man. It's like, how many more times we got to deal with this? Make them pop up at her house next. It's crazy. It's insane. Now, let's move on to something a little bit more fun. Andrade El Idolo. He was on WWE Speed. And the AEW fans thought that was hilarious. That he wanted to get back to WWE so badly, only for him to end up on the 5-minute speed shows on Twitter. Because the AEW fans, they found that that's their new thing, right? They're going to make fun of everybody who pops up on WWE Speed. Will Ospreay was extremely upset when Ricochet was featured on Speed. Ricochet kind of defended it by saying, look, people are investing a ton of money into this show. Twitter is, much like a couple of years ago, they did the Mixed Match Challenge on YouTube. I mean, no, it was not YouTube, it was Facebook. And the Mixed Match Challenge never crossed over into the main show. It was almost always stuff strictly for Facebook. WWE Speed is the same way. And so everybody's like, why the speed belt doesn't get used on television? And, they only put jobbers on the speed show and all that kind of stuff. So now Andrade being on the speed show, I don't know who he wrestled and it don't matter. But just the fact that he was on there led a lot of people to chuckling and kikiing about how he's, being wasted and how he's doing nothing in his career. He came back in January and here it is June and he's made sporadic appearances. There's no storyline. He was squeezed into a match at WrestleMania, which I have to say, I cannot disagree with the AEW fans on this one. Yes, on this episode of SmackDown, his storyline actually continued. So that's kind of like oomph in your face. But at the same time, he has been around for 5 months. And in 5 months, he's done little to nothing. That's Triple H's fault because he brought back Carlito. He did very little with him. Blair Davenport on this show has been drafted to SmackDown for a month. She made one appearance and it's only for 2 seconds in a backstage segment in a month. Kiana James has been on Raw for a month. She made one appearance in a backstage segment. Like, this is getting ridiculous that you have, if you got too many talent to manage, you need to start letting some people go or send them back to NXT. But this is where the AEW fans actually have a good point. Because when Andrade wasn't doing nothing in AEW, we was like, why is Andrade not being used? Why is he not doing anything? But now he's in WWE, he's being underutilized. And I'm supposed to just sit quiet and be like, it's different because it's the letters are different. No, it's the same thing. This guy's been here for 5 months. Trips. H. What are you doing? You gotta have the Mexican guys, they're gonna feud with each other, and one's gonna try to recruit the other. Like, didn't you just do this? Didn't you just try this with somebody else already? I don't know, man. This is not good. And then they just did this with Andrade too, where he was supposed to be getting recruited by Judgment Day. So it's like, You have no earthly idea what you re-signed this guy for. You just re-signed him because Charlotte is there, right? So it's like, oh, we want to make Charlotte happy. And we're going to put them on SmackDown so when Charlotte's back, they could be a happy couple on television because Vince didn't want them to be a couple on TV. This is ridiculous, bro. His storyline with Legado del Fantasma is the same damn thing he just did with Judgment Day before WrestleMania, where he's being recruited by a lowly member of the group. And the elders of the group are kind of like, I don't know about this Andrade guy. I'm not so sure. And that's what they did on the same thing. It's the same thing. Dominic Mysterio was trying to recruit him for the Judgment Day, even though Damian Priest was like, oh, Andrade El Idolo, I am not so sure about you. And he's like, oh, he got to prove himself. He's got to prove himself. And then he teased and then turned. Here they're doing the exact same thing, except now it's Angel, who is the guy who believes so much in Andrade being able to join Legado del Fantasma, and Santos is like, yeah, I kind of like him. And Angel's got to be the guy that convinces him to come in. Like, it's the same damn storyline, bro. Triple H, do you know more than 4 storylines? There's got to be like a 5th one in there somewhere, but I haven't gotten there yet. And we're still stealing things from the past, so let us do that. We're rewriting history, selling a bunch of merchandise, biggest gate for a non-Smackdown show ever in the history of Pomona. What the hell are you talking about? Who cares? You know, the AEW fans are right on this one. This booking of Andrade has been absolutely detrimental to his character. And I know a lot of people don't like him. They think that he's kind of mid, which is fine. But you went through the trouble of getting the guy back. The guy wanted to come back. You went through the trouble of bringing the guy back. And this is what you're doing. This sucks. Fix it. Next, let's go into the main show. Nia Jax, Queen of the Ring. She wants her coronation. She comes out there. She puts on the crown. It actually looks somewhat entertaining. She demanded Bayley's presence as Bayley was coming to the ring, juggling all that stuff back. Oof. You think I didn't see that video of Bayley juggling? You think I didn't see that? I saw that shit. I saw that. Anyway, she was juggling something else in them pants. Auntie Pam just doing what she do. And then all of a sudden, she gets attacked by Piper Niven and Chelsea Green. Then Chelsea Green claimed that Piper will be the women's champion at SummerSlam. So Nia Jax don't have to worry about that. Nia Jax don't really care about that whole thing. So then backstage, Naomi tried to take up for Bayley. Go see what's going on. Said, well, can you fight? Bayley was like, yeah, I guess I can. So then they went and challenged Piper Niven and Chelsea Green to a tag team match. And meanwhile, Naomi bumped into Blair Davenport, who was talking to Nick Aldis, and she just kind of blurted and interrupted. And Blair Davenport made some threats. Then she left, and then LA Knight walked in. But we'll talk about that later. So then they had the tag team match where Bayley and Naomi were defeated by Piper Niven and Chelsea Green, as Piper Niven crushed Naomi with Chelsea Green underneath her. So if you crush Naomi to the point of being dead, why isn't Chelsea even more crushed because she was under Naomi? Does that make sense for a finish? No? Well, that's there you go. To give them some kind of bail, I guess. Chelsea didn't, get the pin on her own. Piper Niven had to throw her on top of Naomi, but that's how the match ended. So now Chelsea and Piper have defeated Bayley and Naomi. This is going to put the two of them in the title picture for a little while, I guess. The problem with booking matches so far out with, Nia Jax faces the champion, regardless of who it is, at SummerSlam, is now you have to do a bunch of filler shit. Because everybody knows it's probably going to be Bayley and Nia Jax. So now we're doing filler stuff. Nobody truly believes that Chelsea Green or Piper Niven can win the title. And since they're not getting huge pushes, Piper Niven got beat in the tournament. And Chelsea Green, did she get beat in the tournament or was she not even in it? It was one or the other. So you haven't done anything to give them any kind of legitimacy. This is a tag team win, not a singles win. And it's a singles championship. So unless you're going to do something stupid like have Bayley defend against both of them in a triple threat match, which would be super corny and right up Triple H's alley. I don't understand what the point of this was. On the other hand, let's move on. Nia Jax, she got into it with Mia Yim. Mia Yim is, as we know, is still working in NXT. She's going to be in the North American title ladder match thing that they're doing over there. But she's still a SmackDown wrestler, so she has to do her SmackDown job too. And her SmackDown job includes doing jobs. So as she was being asked about AJ Styles, and she didn't know anything about this, Nia Jax says, "Why are you talking to her? You should be talking about me." To which, she demanded that Mia Yim not step to her, and Mia Yim decided to step to her anyway. And Nia Jax like, "Oh, you're going to pay for that." So they're going to have a match next week where Mia Yim is going to get killed by Nia Jax. The same weekend, she's going to wrestle for a title in NXT. Make it make sense. Just make it make sense. It doesn't make no sense. It's stupid. Now let's get into the powder blue segment of the show, where AJ Styles is absolutely bursting out of this powder blue suit. It was, when I saw the suit, I knew what was going on. I knew what was going to happen. And they made it incredibly obvious that they were just going the Mark Henry route with AJ Styles. So I really didn't pay too much attention, and I didn't take too many notes at all, because I knew he was not going to retire in this way. And then, of course, they made it even more obvious once he called out Cody Rhodes. So AJ Styles calls out Cody Rhodes. They shake hands. They raising each other's arms. AJ Styles fake retires. Then he attacks Cody Rhodes, gives him a Styles Clash off the steps onto the floor. Everybody's like, oh, I can't believe it. Anybody with any kind of memory knows that it's Mark Henry. They're doing the Mark Henry thing. I will say this. You can reuse gimmicks, but you have to... WWE, let's take a different angle with this. WWE, they know that their audience, for starters, grows up with the product. So most people have been watching for a long time. Now, this Mark Henry thing happened 10 years ago. Thereabouts. I think it had to be like 2013 or something like that. In any event, even back then, it wasn't so obvious that Mark Henry was faking. Here, it was super obvious that AJ Styles was faking and trying to lull Cody into a false sense of security. It was super obvious. All right? That was one of the problems. The second problem in all this is that when the audience has already seen this, you have to put a different spin on it. They did the exact same fucking thing here that Mark Henry did. Had John Cena, aka Cody Rhodes, in the corner, clapping, just watching. Hey, this means a lot to me, blah, 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 blah. And then the attack happens. This is, if you were going to steal the idea, at least put a spin on it. Doing it beat for beat the exact same way for the most part. With the only real difference being that AJ Styles had lost to Cody already and was, he's older and I don't know how much time I got left. It was a good setup to do something like this. But when you make it so obvious, then the shock factor really isn't there. And when you dedicate so much time to it and everybody knows what the twist is, what is the point? I'm not talking about, maybe, just, again, me being older and jaded. I'm like, why are we spending so much time on something that's obviously a troll? Just go ahead and troll it, or play it straight and have AJ Styles say, I'm done, I'm leaving. And he actually leaves. And then he's gone for 3 or 4 weeks. And then he pops back up, with a different look, different attitude or something like that. And saying that he changed his mind or something. But having it be almost the exact beat for beat, bar for bar, same damn thing as Mark Henry was so disappointing. And it shows that, again, Triple H just has no level of creativity. We talking about, Shawn Michaels, who is doing stuff that he did. He's replaying some of his own storylines in NXT. But some of them have been so old that they're kind of refreshing. Triple H is redoing stuff. Even though, this angle was 10 years old thereabouts, it still feels like this angle is something we do all the time with the fake retirements. It doesn't feel fresh. It didn't feel new. It didn't feel spiced up. It feels like your auntie that can't cook trying to recreate your grandma's recipe. That's what it feels like. And it's embarrassing. This was, I'm not saying that it sucked, because AJ did a really great job. Cody does a really great job with his fake, his fake crying and his fake sentimentality. But the performance was fine. The booking of it made no sense because it's so goddamn obvious. You didn't do anything to get anybody to believe that AJ Styles was going to retire in this way. And this is one of the problems that Triple H has. Is he always says that we don't want to, insult the intelligence of the audience. But is your audience the 40-year-olds like me, or is your audience the, teenagers and stuff who might not have lived through this before? Like, Vince will always say, we're going to go for the people who are not really, the young people. The kids were the target audience. And you would reuse things in, slightly different ways for the kids. Now, people who are older would be like, I hate this. It's just a ripoff of blah, 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 blah. But it would be somewhat different. It would be aimed at kids. Now, Triple H is trying to have a more, quote unquote, mature product for people who have already seen this shit. So we've already seen this. And we haven't forgotten it. So it's not like something that, I forgot that happened. People knew it was going to happen as soon as you saw AJ Styles in that suit. I mean, he went to Men's Warehouse and came out powder blue pimping. Come on, man. Get the hell out of here with this. I'm sorry. I wanted to give this a positive review, but no. AJ was great. Cody was great, but Triple H, he only knows 3 storylines. Tommaso Ciampa defeat Austin Theory. Oh boy. Poor Austin Theory. Grayson Waller distracted Austin Theory by saying that he is the one who made Austin Theory relevant and that Gargano was holding him back. Austin Theory heard this because Grayson Waller was talking extremely loud. And he's like, bro, what do you mean? And all of a sudden he gets rolled up by Ciampa and loses. Austin Theory and Grayson Waller are the tag team champions, by the way. And they're already about to come to blows because Grayson Waller wants to take credit for Austin Theory's success. If this is all about getting Austin Theory to babyface, okay, but they're the tag team champions and they haven't had a single feud yet. And Gargano is still floating around on this roster. I mean, come on. Are you serious? Anyway, LA Knight. He's backstage. He wants the United States Championship. He wants Logan Paul, but Carmelo Hayes keeps popping up in his face. Then Carmelo Hayes made the mistake and called Logan Paul LA Knight, and LA Knight called him out on it. And then Carmelo got a little embarrassed. It's live television, bro. Even though NXT was live television too, but I guess he's kind of nervous. Anyway, LA Knight called him pathetic. They apparently are going to have some kind of scuffle next week, but both want to be United States champion. So, okay, Logan Paul has some contenders floating around. I think the LA Knight thing is far more natural because people have wanted that since February. I think people expected Logan Paul to defend the title against LA Knight at WrestleMania. I think people expected Logan Paul to defend the title against LA Knight at Backlash. I think they expected it at Saudi. And now it's like, okay, they're finally going to do it. But that's after Logan Paul gets beat by Cody Rhodes, which does LA Knight no favors. And after LA Knight loses to Tama Tonga in the tournament. Like, you got to think about things a little bit more, So Carmelo Hayes he's been around for a while, and outside of losing matches, he hasn't done much of anything. Again, Triple H, he doesn't have a tag team partner. He doesn't have a best friend. There's no angle for him to steal for Carmelo. Instead of, if you wanted to steal an angle, you know what angle you could have stolen? You remember when MVP was brought to SmackDown and they treated him like he was a real top draft pick with, a press conference and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you guys remember that, but I remember it. And why not do that for Carmelo Hayes? Because his whole gimmick is based off of like being an athlete. like an NBA player with the jerseys and the rafters and all that kind of stuff, right? You can just go full Deion Sanders, which is kind of what they were doing with MVP. Just go full Deion Sanders or Allen Iverson or something like that. You could have spent weeks of, Carmelo Hayes negotiating, quote unquote, his contract. And, him refusing to wrestle, refusing to do anything until his contract is sorted out. And then you could have all these other managers, much like they used to do with Randy Savage. And I think they did this with Bobby Roode in TNA, where they had all these managers try to be his manager. And you could have ended up with Carmelo and MVP. Or Carmelo and somebody else, that you wanted to push as a manager in that kind of role. But that would have been a much better usage of Carmelo Hayes than this. And that wouldn't have required him to wrestle anybody. It wouldn't have required for him to go out there and embarrass himself. It would have put him over. It would have played into his, his character, the image that he wants to portray. And he would be better off if he had a bunch of heel managers trying to negotiate better contracts, guaranteed title matches, all this kind of stuff into his contract. That would have been so much better. But Triple H doesn't do stuff like this. So it comes up to people like me to just make shit up and headcanon it on my own, which is not fair. Not fair to me, dog. Next, Andrade El Idolo, he pins Apollo Crews. Apollo Crews is here. Wow. It's been a while since I saw that guy. And I like Apollo Crews. I like, of course, the Nigerian character. That was so much fun. And he's been off TV for, a year? I don't know if he's been injured, but ever since that that flop NXT run, this thing has been a disaster for Apollo Crews. But he was also on the Speed Show, so how about that? Two guys from the Speed Show is on here now. Andrade wins a competitive match. I don't know if Andrade needed a competitive match, considering Apollo Crews had an in-ring entrance I guess they played his theme song. He hasn't been on TV in forever, and he doesn't talk. So why does they have to wrestle 50-50? I don't know. But an Angel of Legado del Fantasma was out there, very impressed by Andrade. So was Santos Escobar and the others, but Andrade ignored them after he won the match. Backstage, Angel was upset that Andrade made him look bad to Santos, and then he gets attacked by Apollo Crews. So Apollo Crews kicked the shit out of Angel Garza, and he's going to have a match with him next week. Okay, so Apollo Crews, he's trying to find a way in. What happened to Cedric Alexander and Ashanti Theodonis? What happened to those guys? Where are they? Are they in your pocket? Are they under the rugs? Are they hiding in the closet? Are they not there? And I mention that because it seems that they have a thing where they'll bring somebody, they bring the mothballs off somebody, they bring them on 2-3 week thing, then they disappear again. And it seems like it's Apollo Crews' turn. We're gonna we're gonna cover the mothballs off of him, and then we're gonna bring him back for 2 or 3 weeks. He's probably gonna lose to Angel too. But Angel's probably lower on the card, so he might actually beat Angel. And then he's going to disappear. So there's no reason to get too excited about anything. So it's very unfair. Now, the really fun stuff on the show was the Heyman bloodline stuff. This stuff was legit. So Solo Sikoa is backstage telling the Guerrillas of Destiny, they're not calling them that, of course, they're calling them the Bloodline, that they want the Street Profits destroyed. You want their houses burned to the ground. You want their heads on stakes by 4 p.m. sharp. Heyman is like, look, I've been, trying to become a better counsel to you. And he says Roman had violence in the bloodline, but the violence was always had a purpose. He always sought counsel before violence, but not you. Like, there's no strategy to this, Solo. We're supposed to have Cody Rhodes in check when Roman returns. And Solo says that Cody Rhodes is in check. Cody just don't know it yet, which doesn't make sense because he's not in check if he don't know it. And what does being in check means? But at least they're giving giving them a direction. So now we got a direction that, Roman wants Solo to do a thing, but Solo's doing his own thing. Last we checked, Heyman says Solo's supposed to be doing X, Solo is apparently doing Y. Okay? Or he's doing it in his own way. So now we get Kevin Owens coming out there. He's Randy Orton's best good friend all of a sudden. And he wants to have, Randy's back. He flew all the way to Saudi Arabia just to have Randy's back, which sounds dumb in theory and in practice. Then Heyman came out there and hyperventilated for 30 minutes. Him and Kevin Owens had a really good segment. Heyman discussed that Roman always respected Kevin Owens as a legitimate threat and had respect for him. But Solo doesn't have any respect for anybody because Solo is bringing in criminals into the bloodline. That Roman and Heyman did background checks on all the prospective members of the bloodline and rejected many of these new members because they couldn't be controlled. And he said that these guys, they're not looking for a reason. They're looking for an excuse to get Kevin Owens. And he asked Kevin Owens to back off. Please back off. Said he's trying to help him. But Kevin Owens, he said he don't trust Paul Heyman. Now, this is all an act that Heyman is probably the one pulling the strings here and using Solo Sikoa to stay relevant. Trying to instill fear in him, but he's fought the bloodline for years and he's still here. And he says that there's nobody back there that he respects and nobody wants Solo and those two guys here and he wants them to go. Heyman says that he's trying to save Kevin Owens, but he's also trying to redeem himself. Oh, nobody can let Paul Heyman redeem himself. And then all of a sudden, the bloodline come to the ring. And they're marching to the ring after Paul has said all this stuff. They're finally starting to come to the ring. And Kevin Owens looks like he's going to get jumped when the Street Profits come to his aid. And then they lead into the Tama Tonga Tonga Loa versus Street Profits match, which is probably the best match on the show as far as I'm concerned. It was a legitimately fun match that Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa won. This was probably the best I've seen Tonga Loa look in a while, and he was still no-selling stuff. He was no-selling like super kicks or whatever. It was really bizarre. Tonga Loa is just not good. He's not good, but this is probably the best he's looked in a while. Tama Tonga gets the pin with a very non-violent finisher. It's like a face buster. I was like, ugh. I don't know. Like, you would think a guy like him would have a more impactful finish, but I guess he's 40 some odd years old. He don't want to do too much. So, okay. I guess it works until he finds something else. Tama Tonga Tonga Loa, good tag team. I like them. Always liked them. So this was a great tag team match. Street Profits are really good. That segment that led into this, though, was also very good. It's a perfect setup for Jacob Fatu. Because they're playing into the real life story of why these guys weren't in the WWE before. Now, I don't think it really works for Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, but it works for Jacob. In so much as the reason Jacob couldn't get signed to WWE was because he couldn't pass a background check. He had like a real deep criminal element in his history. This is a perfect setup. Now, you would have to, of course, ignore that the Usos also have, crime problems. But for them, they're just drunks. So that's a little different. But these guys, it might be something a little bit serious on that jacket. So they're playing into the fact that Solo is creating basically a gang within the bloodline. And it's not what Roman envisioned for the group. So this segment did a really good job of creating what the Bloodline Wolfpack really is. What Bloodline 2.0 really is. It really sent home how Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns did not want the Bloodline to be this. That they wanted to be strategic, that there had to be a purpose, that there had to be guys who represented the family in a positive way and all this kind of stuff. Even though Roman himself, of course, never did that. But it separates the two groups perfectly and really hammered it home. Yes, you would probably want to have Solo and the Guerrillas of Destiny come out as Paul is trying to warn Kevin Owens when he's talking about these background checks and all that kind of stuff. You want to tell him to be on the hush with that, like, shh, what are you talking about here? Why are you talking so much, Paul? So that's like the only thing I would probably add is that Solo and them would probably want to keep that under wraps. That, maybe you shouldn't mention our background so much. Maybe you should just keep that to yourself. You know, like that would be Solo's intimidation, his soft hand. Now he puts a hand on Paul's shoulder and say, like, hey, maybe these guys are trying to redeem themselves too. You know, like you're trying to redeem yourself, but so are these guys. You know, that would be a nice little touch. But I like that they're doing like a savage bloodline and a more traditional bloodline. And I like that Kevin Owens, even though I hate Kevin Owens as a character, everybody knows that, and he's super annoying and he sucks. I am okay with him being the guy who fought the previous bloodline and is going to be the guy that is going to physically show you the difference between that bloodline, which is Roman and the Usos, and this bloodline, which is Solo and Guerrillas of Destiny. I'm interested in seeing that but they have to basically destroy him because Roman and the Usos beat Kevin Owens damn near to death for 2 or 3 years and he kept coming back. So the better way to tell this story is for Solo and the Guerrillas of Destiny to get their hands on Kevin Owens and he's done. I'm talking, we don't see him for months. You know, like that's the best way to handle it because part of the story with Roman and Kevin Owens is that Kevin Owens could take massive amounts of damage and keep coming back. But now we need to show him that, you know, Roman and the Usos were being light. That was light work. What these guys are going to do to you is going to be bad. And this is where you need to go a little bit more Attitude Era, where I would suggest that they just assault Kevin Owens in the parking lot with like bats. I'm being like legit, you know, that they just start tearing people up with weapons. Go full casino, like near the end of Casino where these guys are going around popping dudes and all that kind of shit. They need to do that to show that, you know, these guys are not screwing around and you need to just start kneecapping people and putting them on the shelf for like weeks at a time. That would show you like, okay, Roman and them was bad, but these dudes are awful. They're the worst. You know, like nobody can stand against these guys because not only do they not fight fair, you know, but they're huge, you know, so you need to do something that makes them look different, come across as being different. And if they're just going to start punching them in the shoulders and all that kind of stuff, man, it's like, we've already seen that. He's going to be okay. But if they, you know, want to run him over and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. You know, these guys are a lot more dangerous and a lot more devious than Roman and all that kind of stuff. And that's what you need in this storyline. You need to show that Roman was being light and these guys are not. These guys are serious business. All right, so the only other thing other than this is Jade Cargill threatening to fold Indy Hartwell, which who cares about Indy Hartwell? So Smackdown, I love the bloodline stuff, clearly. The AJ Styles angle, well performed, but uninspired booking. The matches, I love the tag team match, the Street Profits and Guerrilla of Destiny. I thought that was great. Nothing else really lit the fire for me. So SmackDown, once again, the tag team title picture is weak. The women's title picture now consists of jabronis from the mid-card. It's just, there's not much going. And then we're just kind of in cruise control until SummerSlam when Bayley and Nia Jax kicks in. And I'm assuming AJ Styles and Cody Rhodes is going to be a SummerSlam as well, because I don't see who else. Unless you're going to do Solo. I guess you could have Solo and Cody. But if that's the case, if Solo and Cody is the ultimate game for SummerSlam, then AJ Styles is once again in a filler feud with Cody, where he has no chance of winning the title, even though we already knew that. But how are you going to make that interesting beyond AJ Styles faked his retirement? I don't know. Like, I don't know. But you still got some fun stuff with LA Knight and Logan Paul, you know, in the future. So that might be fun. But otherwise, SmackDown is a pedestrian show too. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you guys later.